Well, here I am in one of my old PT shirts again, and you know what that means. It means it's time for more analyst ring. So, well, this one's for you, Jimmy. Okay, so before we get into things proper, I'm going to disclose my credentials, so to speak, for any few of you stragglers that are new. Now, I rarely, if ever, talk about the fact that I'm a veteran because I feel it's not appropriate to bring it up unless it's, important to the topic at hand. In this case, and in most cases of analyst ring, it's, my service is very much relevant because I had spent my entire time in the Army, 3 years plus training as an intelligence analyst, and it's doubly relevant. So I spent 3 years of my life serving in the military, specifically at the division headquarters of the 101st Airborne Division, Air Assault. Force of Habit, as an intel analyst. One of those years being actually deployed in Afghanistan. Now, I had done most of my work focusing on the area south of Kabul, but our division our area of interest, our area of study very much covers the region of Afghanistan that is in the news right now, even, aside from Kabul area because it's the capital. So on Monday, or last Monday, given that I'm recording this on a Friday, but Jimmy Snow, Mr. Atheist, devoted the first 10 to 14 minutes of his Monday episode of the Sometimes Show to covering the situation happening in Afghanistan. And I was already planning on doing an analyst ring video on the situation in Afghanistan, but Jimmy's coverage of what's going on now, I do understand it was released on Monday. So, and I'm recording on Friday, so there's a good 3 to 4 days of news coming out. But while I feel that Jimmy's heart is in the right place in regards to his his coverage, he has some really bad takes, and I will be linking that episode in the description below and also in the end card. But and I would be putting in clips, but I can't figure out how to make my editor handle videos that are over a half hour long. And I can't figure out how to clip out like sections to put into my editor. So software know-how issues abound. Anyways, it's coming from the right place, but there are some really bad takes in there. And largely it's horrifically naive at best. At worst, you could say it's a bit jingoistic, a bit of the old city on the hill mentality that America has struggled with since, for the past 100 years or so. But so to boil it down, Jimmy congratulated Biden for pulling out, said, yes, we needed to pull out of Afghanistan. And yes, I agree, we needed to, pull out of Afghanistan. We should have been out of Afghanistan since 2012 at the absolute latest. I'll get more into that later. But he said the way we did it is what's like essentially his take was we should have, we did good by pulling out, but we should have done it another way to keep this, to keep the Taliban from taking over again. Now, here's why that is, once again, horrifically naive. One final disclaimer. I'm largely going off my understanding based on what I learned during my time serving in the military. I did some reading on the current situation. I will try to remember to put news articles in the description below. But this is going off of information that is nearly a decade old. So, quick little disclaimer for that, and also I am going to be broad and generic because I don't want to go to jail. Okay, those disclaimers out of the way. Afghanistan was going to explode the second we pulled out. Phrasing. But it basically, Afghanistan was one of those like movie mines where, the person steps on the mine and it like there's the click and they've got to stay on the mine or else it'll blow up. It's one of those where if we were gonna get out, like the second that we got out, it would have exploded. Reason one, like Afghanistan is a nation, it's not a cohesive nation. The best analogy I have is picture, Revolutionary War America under the Articles of Confederation. Basically, you're a Pashtun or a Tajik before you're an Afghan. You are this ethnic group, you are of this village, you are of this province before you're an Afghan. So there's always kind of been, conflict between the various ethnicities in the nation. These conflicts, particularly against a power, an alliance of, tribes in the north and the Taliban at large is why we managed to kick them out, kick out the Taliban so quickly in 2001. It's because there were already, tensions and resistance to the current government there that we then, aided. The same thing happened in, in the 80s when we funded the Taliban to kick out Russia. But, so, there's always going to be a resistance to whatever government is in place. Now, that's the internal political reason why Afghanistan was going to explode the minute we got out. The other main reason, or reasons, is geopolitical. Because Afghanistan, it happens to be in the middle, like centrally located amongst some rather large regional powers. In fact, that's part of the reason why why, in my opinion, we went into Iraq. Because sandwiched right between Iraq and Afghanistan is Iran. And of course, we're friends with the Saudis who don't like Iran, and so having bases in both Iraq and Afghanistan would have made for a lovely, staging ground if things happened to blow up there. Or rather, if the Cold War between Saudi Arabia and Iran, kept going, we're basically talking missiles in Turkey, essentially. The missile bases in Turkey from the Cold War. So, and also, so you've got, Afghanistan, you've got Iran. To the north, you've got a bunch of smaller border countries, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, I think. And then, of course, above that, there's Russia. Which, of course, Russia is essentially a non-factor in this. They just don't want anything filtering into their territories. Russia's looking out for Russia and kind of looking out into the wider world stage. To the direct east, you have Pakistan. And we'll circle back to Pakistan. But Pakistan is a big player in this. And then, of course, to the kind of northeast, Afghanistan also shares a border with China. Now, the entire time we've been in America has been in Afghanistan, China's also been kinda in there, not on a military basis. Their mining companies have been building up infrastructure in Afghanistan to make inroads with the people there and to try and get the natural resources under the Hindu Kush Mountains, because the Afghanistan resources haven't been as exploited as other deposits in the wider world. But so we're circling back to Pakistan. See, Pakistan is where a lot of what we're calling the Taliban, for lack of a better term, because that's the term everyone's using. Technically, the Taliban disbanded after the U.S. kicked them out and kind of exploded into a bunch of sub-networks. But so what, for lack of a better term, we're going to call the Taliban, most of their top guys were hanging out in Pakistan, where Pakistan wasn't letting us really get at them, because Pakistan is kind of frenemies with the U.S. But the thing is, Pakistan doesn't want a stable Afghanistan, or at the very least, if Afghanistan is stable, they want Afghanistan as a staunch ally. Like, we're talking Britain and the US, kind of, close tied, staunch ally, or maybe US and Canada. We are in this together, staunch ally, because Pakistan has its ongoing Cold War feud, Cold War occasionally growing hot feud with India, that it wants to focus all its attention on. So if Afghanistan doesn't look like it's going to go Pakistan's way, the Pakistani government will basically pull a CIA and just make sure the people, who don't like the current government, have the supplies and wherewithal to keep that government busy. And that's basically what they were doing for the Taliban during our time in Afghanistan. So the Taliban was essentially, aside from the boots on, the grunts, the boots on the ground, and some of the infiltrators were just hanging out in Pakistan, waiting for us to get out so they can just go mosey on back in and, take over. Because point 3, the Afghan National Army, to be horrifically blunt, and to put it horrifically bluntly and even insultingly so, Afghan National Army, with a brief, with a few notable exceptions, rest in peace Commander Aziz, was essentially a joke. But the more charitable and nuanced explanation is, the members of the Afghan National Army, the soldiers in the Afghan National Army, even, the Afghan police service, basically saw their service as just a job. They were there to earn a steady paycheck. And once again, you have the issue where you're a Pashtun before you are Afghan. You're Tajik before Afghan. You're from Paktika before you're an Afghan. So, when you have, that lack of national cohesion, and then when you have a military force that basically saw it as just a day job, once again, with a few notable exceptions, the Afghan National Army was largely going to roll over the second the Taliban rolled in. And here's where I get to my other main point of contention with Jimmy, is like, Jimmy, like, both Jimmy and I have beef with how Biden handled this. Jimmy's doing it on a tactical level where basically, if anything, we couldn't have done any, that this would have happened either way. Tactically, strategically speaking, the Taliban was going to swoop in and take over the second we left. But so Jimmy's beef with Biden is how Biden handled this, and tactically. My beef with him is how he handled this politically. And I don't mean international politics. I mean speaking to the American people and the media politically. See, when he said the Taliban aren't, what happened wasn't going to happen, that was essentially a bold-faced lie. Anyone who's focused on, who spent any time studying Afghanistan in a professional capacity knows that Afghanistan was going to blow up the second we got out. I mean, the same thing happened in Iraq. Second we step out, here comes ISIS. But what's the, so in my opinion, Biden should have bitten the bullet and admitted it when he was asked flat out by a reporter, are things going to go bad when we pull out? And he's like, no. He should have bitten the bullet and been straight. Now, Jimmy also cited that there were experts, intelligence experts expected that the Taliban would only reach Kabul within 30 to 90 days. Now, I'm not disputing the number given, because I haven't seen his source. However, I am giving some context. So I'm guessing the sources from, some news agency, which probably got their number from a, press manager high up, like White House press secretary maybe, or some sort of press person at the Department of Defense. But working as an analyst, you're expected to be accurate, yes, but you're also expected to be something of a spin doctor, because you learn real quick what kind of estimates make your officers happy and what kind don't. Now, if I were to guess, the private who originally wrote the assessment probably fudged the numbers a bit conservatively, at somewhere in the 3 to 9 weeks area, maybe saying maybe giving it 3 to 9 weeks. then like whoever took from that report, the next analyst up the chain, because you pull from reports from other analysts all the fucking time, probably fudge that a little more conservatively to make their bosses happy. And so, we have, 3 to 9 weeks turning into 30 to 90 days via conservative estimate telephone, essentially. So, but, that's basically my input on the whole Taliban taking over Afghanistan crisis. So, a couple of final things. One, Jimmy also phrased it as if U.S. forces are entirely out of Afghanistan. However, there are forces currently fortifying the Kabul International Airport, the Hamid Karzai International Airport, and are to ensure that Americans and hopefully Afghan nationals, nationals who served as interpreters and diplomatic staff, who helped for the past 20 years get out. Now, it is unclear from what I've read whether or not the troops there will stay long enough to help Afghan vulnerable Afghan nationals escape. But, as of Friday, there are still, U.S. forces within Kabul itself, but it is, largely focused on securing the airport, and there appears to be something of a not quite standoff there. Also, I do agree with Jimmy on the point that we do need to, do everything in our power diplomatically and even militarily to make sure that the Afghans that are in danger because of their assistance to the U.S. military and the U.S. diplomatic efforts, and i.e. the U.S. embassy in Afghanistan and etc., get out safely and have a place, in, whatever Western country they wish to settle in. It would be the most supreme of dick moves to just abandon them. But once again, it's not exactly the first time we've left people who've helped us in the lurch. Also, on a slightly lighter note, I have unbridled joy seeing TERFs and some other right-wing fundamentalists go completely mask off and just say, yeah, we stand the Taliban. That was a pleasant surprise in all this, was that little glimmer of mask off on Twitter. But with all that said, it was gonna happen. The only way to keep it from happening was to just kind of stay in Afghanistan forever. And no one wants that. Now, basically what had happened was we had been in Afghanistan way too fucking long. The last president who could have like claimed any kind, and like whoever pulled out of Afghanistan would have ended up, being seen as losing the fight, because as soon as we pulled out, the Taliban would have just gone back in. And which is kind of like, if I'm going to be horrifically charitable and give Trump any kind of kudos, like any kind of credit for political savvy, it's that timing the exit strategy for a changeover of power and essentially making Biden the fall guy, that is kind of a brilliant move, as much as I'm loath to say it. But honestly, anyone who pulled out of Afghanistan would have been seen as losing Afghanistan to the Taliban. The only president who could have managed to pull out with anything resembling a victory was probably Obama right after we got bin Laden. Because if Obama, because the reason on paper for us going into Afghanistan was, bin Laden did 9/11, so we got to go in to get bin Laden. So once we had that win of getting bin Laden, we could have started withdrawing, and that would have been seen as a win by the American people. Obviously, Afghanistan would have exploded soon afterwards, but the only president who could have withdrawn from Afghanistan without us, without looking like he lost it, and just, handed it back to the Taliban, would have been Obama right after we got bin Laden. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and do my, whole Shilling thing. Go ahead and check out the links in the description below. Hey, if you liked what you saw, most of my stuff is usually like media commentary. But every so often when something big and terroristy happens on the news, I do put my analyst hat back on and, put on one of my old PT shirts and do one of these. So if you like what you see, click the subscribe, ring the bell, leave a comment. Not expecting this to get any kind of traction or anything, but, whatever feeds the algorithm. And if you want to launch drama at me, go ahead. It'll be the first drama I've seen ever about. And with that, just remember, indoctrination is a hell of a drug. Some folks inherit star-spangled lies. Ooh, they send you out to war. When you ask them how much should you give, the only answer's more, more, more. Yeah. It ain't me. It ain't me. I ain't no military son. It ain't me. It ain't me. I ain't no fortunate one.